Games of Legend.
Mega Man X, released in 1993 for the Super Nintendo, was a spin-off of the original Mega Man franchise and the first in a long line of Mega Man X titles. Following the success of the original NES games, Capcom decided to make a new type of Mega Man for the new 16-bit hardware. That new Mega Man was X. And what he gave us was a game that featured a more story-driven experience with more adult tones, as well as overhauled gameplay. In the 2 decades since it first came to the SNES, the game has seen sequels, spin-offs of its own, and even a full-scale remake for the PSP, known as Maverick Hunter X. So what was the key to this game's success? Let's find out in this extra special episode of Games of Legend. In the year 21XX, a century has passed since the hero Mega Man took on the evil plots of the fiendish Dr. Wily, and much has changed. The last legacy of Dr. Light's genius is a mysterious robot sealed inside a tube. Found by scientist Dr. Kane, Mega Man X becomes the template for a new race of robots, built by Dr. Kane, known as Reploids. As some Reploids rebel, a group known as the Maverick Hunters is formed. X joins their numbers in an effort to stop this growing problem of malfunctioning Reploids. The leader of the Maverick Hunters, Sigma, eventually goes Maverick himself, taking several other hunters with him, and launching an attack on Able City. X, along with his hunter pal Zero, set off to stop this madness and confront their former brothers-at-arms. The game itself starts with X racing down a highway to confront the rampaging Maverick forces, with little to no in-game explanation as to the story. There is a small cutscene before the main menu showing a message from Dr. Light, but most of the story comes from the Dr. Kane journal entries found in the game's manual. The PSP remake of the game does somewhat remedy this with ample cutscenes and in-game dialogue, as well as an unlockable movie short called The Day of Sigma. The story itself, while not being completely unique, does mark a much more serious tone in the Mega Man narrative than any of the games previously released on the NES. The later games in the X series would continue this method of more mature storytelling and expand on it with many of the entries tackling the themes established in this game. Themes such as betrayal, morality, and the fear of advanced technology. Advanced 1990s technology. Terrifying. Back is the art of Keiji Inafune and team. With more freedom in the design and palette options than they were previously used to, Inafune's team was allowed to experiment visually with this new type of Mega Man, taking full advantage of the SNES's more advanced hardware. And it shows. Gone are the cutesy sprites of the original Blue Bomber, in his place is the large and colorful form of the anime-inspired hero, X. The levels are uniquely stylized and many feature multiple layers of scrolling, as well as tons of beautiful new enemies. From jungles to underwater levels, even soaring high in the sky, this game has a plethora of locations that capture well the theme of the bosses found at the end of each stage. Speaking of the bosses, gone are the humanoid look and whatever man monikers of the original robot masters. The Maverick bosses of Mega Man X have the elemental powers we know and love, but come in animal-inspired robot forms, each being designed as extremely individual personalities. Each comes complete with different sizes, color schemes, and attack patterns, making the bosses such as Launch Octopus, the Underwater Terror, Flame Mammoth, the Giant Hothead, and Storm Eagle, the high-flying menace, all feel like fully realized characters in their own right. The feel of the art style is, like the story, more inspired by 90s anime than its predecessors, and some of the characters, like Sigma, remind me of Sagat meets Bison from Capcom's other big game series, and Vile is more than a slight nod to the design of Boba Fett. Seriously, Robo-Fett, anyone? But the team undoubtedly did a great job of distinguishing this title from the look and feel of the original Mega Man games, while still paying homage to the series' roots. Mega Man still looks like Mega Man, just a little grown up, and with a touch of 90s attitude. Of course, you can't discuss any Mega Man game without a talk on gameplay. The original series of Mega Man games set the standard for what an action platform game could be, and once the series established its specific formula, rarely did it deviate from it, with the focus of most games revolving around challenging levels leading to interesting bosses whose weapons you could collect, followed by storming the end boss's lair. And while this tried and true formula worked for the NES titles and would remain the basis for this game, the folks behind Mega Man X wanted to shake things up a little with some new additions. From the start of the game, you'll have access to a chargeable buster cannon like in Mega Man 4, and the completely new ability to scale walls like f***ing Shinobi. As you progress through the game, you'll have the chance to pick up new abilities from Dr. Light's capsules hidden throughout the various stages. The leg upgrade, which is hard to miss, unlocks the ability to dash, and getting your hands on the X-Buster upgrade will let you use an even more powerful charge shot and even charge the shots of your stolen weapons. Which is still a thing. Kill a boss, get their weapon. It's a very Mega Man thing to do. Also hidden throughout the levels are some sub-tanks, which are refillable containers that can hold extra life energy, and heart tanks, which make your overall health increase. The ability to dash and scale walls becomes prominent tactics in defeating mini-bosses, and to me make the gameplay feel a bit more varied than previous Mega Man titles, and the addition of armor upgrades and refillable sub-tanks add a little RPG influence to the mix, and make the overall game experience a little bit more accessible to less than skilled gamers. Also, ride armors. Giant. Sorry, where was I? After the all too easy intro level and a fight with Vile, and some dialogue with the Too Cool for School Zero, you'll get to take a run at any one of the 8 Maverick bosses. Each stage has unique enemies and traps like one would expect, and besides getting to some of the harder to reach armor pieces, none of the levels offer too steep of a challenge. The unique bosses at the end of each can be approached in any order, but all have weaknesses to certain weapons, just like you knew they would. Most people start with Chill Penguin. Doing so lets you grab the first, hard-to-avoid capsule with the dash ability inside. Taking out the Icy Maverick isn't too difficult with just a buster, and defeating him gets you the Shotgun Ice ability, which makes the fight against Spark Mandrill quick and easy. After Spark Mandrill, the third boss is Armored Armadillo. Time the shots of Electric Spark right, and he'll go down without too much hassle. Next up is Launch Octopus. Rolling Shield is his Achilles heel. Also, you can take off some of his tentacles with Boomerang Cutter if you already have it. Boomer Coanger is fast on his feet, but scaling the wall while spamming Launch Octopus's homing torpedoes will put an end to his antics. The sixth boss is Sting Chameleon. He can vanish and reappear and launch attacks from the ceiling. Using his weakness, the Boomerang Cutter, you can take him out without taking too much damage yourself. Storm Eagle will attempt to dive bomb you, so use the multi-trajectory shot of the Chameleon Sting to, clip his wings? I'm sorry. Last up is Flame Mammoth. Rip him to pieces with a Storm Tornado, which may be the most OP weapon in the entire game. After the 8 Mavericks, then it's time to bring the fight to Sigma. After fighting a giant spider, a sinister robotic room, an evil dragon car, and Sigma's own robot dog, Belgarder. Sigma's first form isn't that bad, with wall scaling being your best friend. However, Sigma's second form can be a bit nastier. Defeat him to see a very dramatic ending. Also, some foreboding post-credit build-up to the next installment. Did Marvel make this game? Overall, the gameplay hits the familiar notes of the series while adding a touch of something new. It's not quite the revolution of gameplay that some seem to think it is, but it's pretty well done, and fun, and that's really all that matters at the end of the day. With the better sound capabilities of the SNES came a chance to reinvent the soundscape of this spin-off game. And to me, there's no doubt that this game delivered, with killer tracks like X Gon' Give It To Ya. What? Are you sure? Turns out that X Gon' Give It To Ya by DMX is not actually in this game. Too bad, it would have been perfect for a boss battle. If only the song had been written, like, 10 years sooner. Oh well. The music that is here is awesome nonetheless, such as the intro stage's theme, or the synth guitar rock of Storm Eagle's stage, or even the badass stage selection music. All of the music has a decidedly 90s feel, and it really fits the attitude of the game. Fast, exciting, and with tons of synth. Just the way we like it. Overall, this game comes equipped with all the Mega Man gimmicks and cliches you want, and a little extra besides. The pros of this game are many. First of all, it's more forgiving sort of Mega Man with upgradable armor, reserve tanks for health, and less challenging stages, making it a good starting game for people wanting to get into the Blue Bombers games. The second pro is that the game has a great art style, with cool looking locations and bosses. Third is the tight gameplay and the fun powers that you get to use. Not to mention it has an awesome soundtrack, and it did introduce the awesome hero known as Zero. The cons of the game are few, but for me anyways, are at least something to consider. First is the decreased challenge that makes for a good starter Mega Man game may be a disappointment to some Mega Man veterans who like the steep uphill battle of some of those older NES titles. Another con is the length of the game seems a little on the short side, but I think that owes itself mostly to the moderate difficulty. Also, and this is probably my biggest complaint, passwords. Ugh. In the end, the game isn't the best game ever made, but it is one of them. A solid adventure from start to finish, and a breath of fresh air in a series that needed it. It started another Mega Man franchise that lasted for 8 titles, and even gave birth to the Mega Man Zero spin-off games for the Game Boy Advance. It was a hit when it came out, and it's certainly worthy of being a game of legend now. Thank you guys for watching. As always, feel free to like, comment, or subscribe. This has been Dave the Knight with another Game of Legend from the Retro Arcanum. Laters.